Well, thanks. And as we end today's service, we wanted to do a helpful interview. I know that I've spoken to many of you who have lost jobs recently, and you're going through that process of what do you do next. And so today we're going to interview Mark Fielder. Mark is Liz Fielder's husband, the woman that prays so nicely here at Mosaic occasionally. Mark works in HR. He's the head of HR at an organization here in Dubai, and he's lived in Dubai for 13 years.
That's right, yeah.
And he's had 7 jobs in those 13 years. So you can imagine a lot of things have happened. He's kind of come up with a framework that helps him make decisions as he's looking for another job. And I felt like it would be helpful for you to watch as well. One of the things we want to do here at Mosaic is we want to be for Dubai. So that means we want to help you grow spiritually in your relationship with Jesus. But it also means that we want to help you in other ways as well. And one of the ways that we're going to do that today is to help those who are looking for a job. So this may be you, or you might know someone that is looking for a job that you could share this with as well. So Mark, thanks for being here today. We really
thanks for the
appreciate
invitation, Jeremy.
So you've had a lot of experience, 7 jobs in 13 years. So give us a little bit of background. What did you feel like during those times? What did you do during those times?
Yeah, well, as you can imagine, it's been quite a challenge. We have worked primarily with HR Emirati teams, so I've been coaching and mentoring them, and this has led to a number of different short-term contracts. And between each one, we have been through a process of considering our options, whether we should return to the UK or whether we should stay in the region. We've lived in hotels. We've put our furniture in storage. We've been back to the UK. We've moved to Elaine. We've had many assignments down in Abu Dhabi. So I think the key is to be flexible, to be agile, to be open-minded. Fortunately, we've not had children with us, so it's only Liz and myself that we have been coping with. But certainly it's been a time of change and a very challenging journey.
Yeah, definitely. And I can imagine a lot of people feel like maybe they feel embarrassed because they've lost their job. They feel like a failure, but that's not the case, is it?
No, absolutely. No, it's not about failure, particularly in this season of the pandemic. Many people are losing their jobs through no fault of their own. And I think it's very important to remember that it's not a question of success or failure. This is a reality. And we need to take stock, we need to accept the situation. I find this cycle of acceptance quite helpful. I don't know whether you've been through it before in other interviews. But generally, there are a number of steps. You're living your normal existence. Then you get this bad news one day that you are losing your job. Inevitably, you go into a phase of denial. You can't believe it's me. Why is it me? Then there may be some elements of anger or even depression. But eventually you come to realize that it is what it is, and you need to start thinking about the different options that are available to you. So people take great delight in reminding me that I'm a baby boomer, but I find that a notepad and making lists is actually helpful. I think when you're at this acceptance stage, it's worth writing down some of the reflections of previous jobs that you've had, things that you like doing, people you like working with, the culture that you enjoy, and indeed writing down some of the things that you don't like, the things that you want to avoid in possibly another position. Then I think too, it's worth making another list of the people that you know. Business acquaintances, friends, colleagues, neighbours. There's a neighbour who's just moved in next door who claims she's a recruiter herself. So, this was a good opportunity for me to talk to her. But again, use all these networks, not just asking for a job, but to say, I'm out of work, I'm looking around for another opportunity. Do you happen to know someone who may be setting up a new company or maybe expanding? Maybe someone they know who is actually looking for support and could provide another opportunity. I think research is showing now that we don't actually have 3 jobs in a lifetime, but 3 careers. And I know yourself, you've been a pilot, you've been a pastor. I'm not sure what you were before you were a pilot.
What before? What am I going to be next? Who knows?
Yeah. But I certainly have worked. I've worked in the UK for many years. I've worked out in the West Indies, in the Caribbean. I've worked here in the Middle East. So it certainly feels like 3 different careers. And
I think my third one's going to be retirement. That's going to be it.
Well, that hopefully will be my 4th. Yeah. So beyond these 2 lists, another technique that I've used that I have found very helpful is mind mapping. It's like drawing a spider's web, where again on each part of the web, it's you look at again the options, the opportunities that may be available to you. Look at the pros and cons of each one of those options. I think you were saying earlier that you've used it in your work.
Yes, yes, I have. Whenever we did carols and campfires, I felt like it was such a big, complex idea. A mind map really helped me to be able to break that big idea into smaller ideas. And whenever I broke it into smaller ideas, it just helped bring clarity to the whole situation.
Yeah. Well, even with the biggest problems, the biggest issues, you need to break it down into smaller pieces to be able to cope with the challenges. Then, of course, developing your own CV, that's an important part of the employment process. Certainly I would recommend that you do not send out one generic CV for 100 different types of jobs. One size doesn't fit all, and it's important that you personalize that.
Yeah.
Try and make sure that you understand the job you're applying for, read the job description, try and include in the CV as many keywords as you possibly can, because these tend to be picked up now in some of the automated selection procedures. So again, if you're applying for a pilot or engineer, the more times you mention this, then the more likely they are to take your application more seriously.
I see. So it kind of goes through a computer system first.
Well, some of the big international firms, we're not using automated selection ourselves, but in some of the international firms, they would be using artificial intelligence now.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's important too, I think, to write the CV in chronological order, to write your most current position first. Okay. Try and include some numbers, some metrics within the CV. If you've worked on a project of 100 million or whatever, it's worth putting in some of those figures. If you've led teams of 5 or 10 or 20, putting in those quantifiable numbers where people can see the depth and the scope of your work.
Something measurable.
Yeah. The other thing is to keep it relatively short. Frankly, recruiters are not interested in what I did 40 years ago, last 5 or 6 years, or the time that you've worked within the UAE or in the region is probably the most relevant. Okay. Certainly don't go beyond 2 pages. Recruiters have a very low attention span.
I think we all do.
Yeah, and it's a very discriminating process. It's much easier to put a CV to one side than it is to say. And remember that, whatever your work, if you're an IT professional or if you're an engineer, then every other applicant will be an IT specialist or an engineer. So that really is taken for granted. Mm-hmm. If you can make your comments about the fact you've worked in a multicultural environment, or you're strong on emotional intelligence, or some added value, some unique selling point that makes you different to the average engineer or the average IT specialist.
Oh, that's really helpful. Yeah. And what would you say about for someone going physically to the organization and turning in your CV? Yeah. I've seen that work for a friend of mine recently, but I know probably big companies probably don't like that.
Well, we certainly don't encourage it. Most HR departments don't, but I think in this environment, in this season, it's well worth trying. If you can get in, for example, if you're a teacher, if you can get in and meet the principal of a new school or the head of department, if you can make a first impression, I think that is helpful. I've tried it with my own niece, Mika. We weren't that successful, but we were able to get to the HR department and get a name. Mm-hmm. And then if you can send your CV to a named person, whether it's an HR officer, HR recruiter, or the manager. It helps rather than sending it on a generic open platform where you might be in competition with many others.
Sure. And where would you find those unique names possibly?
Well, LinkedIn, of course, is a very helpful resource. You can look at the companies that you are targeting. You can then look at the people who are working in those companies. You can look at the names of the people who are working in the HR departments or in the head of engineering or design or whatever it might be. So there are many ways, looking at the company profile on the website, looking at their management team. But if you can get a name, it's that much, I think you've got a better chance of getting that individual to at least receive the CV and to refer it to. I mean, HR are really just drawing up a short list. They're not making the final decision.
Yeah.
But again, it's important to feel that you're not the only one. It's important to share that experience, that journey with as many different people as you can, and to realize that it only takes one door to open for the next opportunity.
Yeah. Well, that's been really helpful. Is there any other tips that you have for us today, or did we go over all of them in your book there?
I think we covered 5 points.
I mean, it's
whether it's an art or a science in looking for new job opportunities, I'm not sure, but they are out there. I do believe that the economy and the environment will improve, particularly with Expo planned for next year. And there may be some strategy in actually waiting, biding your time, allowing many others to leave, and those that have the resilience and the resources who stay. Sometimes I've been without a job with 3, even 6 months.
Sure.
It's not a great feeling, but if you have the faith, if you believe that you have a contribution to make, there will be another opportunity.
Well, I know that you've helped many people with this conversation. I think you've encouraged a lot of people.
Well, I hope so, Jeremy. Yeah. And I would say that, if anyone who is listening or watching wishes to share their CV or wishes just to talk about their situation or their challenges, I'd be more than happy to talk.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mark. You've been helpful for me. You've been helpful for a lot of people here watching.
You're not looking for another job?
No, I'm not looking for a job. I'm happy being a pastor. I'm doing what God told me to do, so I'm staying.
Good.
Well, thank you all. We appreciate you being here. Be sure to share this with someone else. We're going to put this on YouTube and Facebook, on social media. Be sure to click subscribe and to click on those notifications so that you don't miss out on any more helpful content that we put out each week. Thanks for being here at church. Have a great week. Take care.